Stream and record. Okay. Well, there we go. I don't know if we know. Okay. Well, here we go.
Well, Mike, thank you again for setting this up for all of us. Look forward to this to being the inaugural session of this could go on for years and decades.
Well, I hope so. Decades, maybe not, but.
Well, we've known and worked together for decades, so
we have.
We'll keep it going.
I didn't have the intro, the fancy intro with the countdown timer. And
looks like it's about 2 minutes to right now.
Yep, that's what it looks like. And I don't know how to know how, like I was going to say, I don't know how to know how we have attendees, if any. And see the the bandwidth statistics are flying by. Very interesting.
I notice each of the three of the LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, it'll indicate how many viewers are currently with it.
And I have a box elder bug crawling across my keyboard. We have more box elder bugs and stink bugs. Okay, 1 minute.
Love and appreciate you, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron,
for your interest and effort.
Didn't want to be there, actually. Where's the... Okay, well, that was interesting. There we go. All right. Welcome. It's 2 o'clock. We're absolutely glad to have you here today. This is our inaugural live stream. We're going live to YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook based on the new capabilities of Ecamm Live 4.0. We're extremely proud to be using it today. There's a lot to set up, I've learned in the last couple of weeks. Let me introduce my partner, Ron Holm here. Ron, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, Mike, thanks for setting this up. When you use the word inaugural, that usually means there's going to be some glitches along the way. So,
well, I would be surprised if there wasn't, Ron. Ron, as you can see, is the CEO and one of the two co-founders, I being the other one. And we started Track Selling Institute about 3 years ago, didn't we, Ron?
Yeah, maybe even a little more. We've gone certainly more virtual in the last 3 years since COVID, but I think we started a year or two before that. So
yeah. So we're very happy to be with you today. We've got an agenda, that I think will be worthwhile and appropriate for our kickoff meeting, our kickoff live stream. Let me go through and present the agenda for you. If this is all working right. Today, we want to just introduce ourselves a little bit. We've already done a little bit of that, but maybe a little more. Then we're going to go in and we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the state of sales today. As you probably know, sales is in great transition again, probably constantly in a state of transition. And so it's important, I think, to look at where we are today and maybe a little bit about where we're going to be going over the next few years as a sales profession. Next topic would be what we see as top trends. We have topics for our first two live streams. We're going to be doing live streams on the second and fourth Mondays of the month at 2 p.m. Central. So that'll be noon, high noon, and on Pacific time, and obviously 3 o'clock on the Eastern Coast. But we've got a list of topics. We would love your feedback. The first one today is on remote selling, which we'll go into in just a second. And our next one on March 6th is scheduled to be on artificial intelligence, a topic that I've been very excited about lately and spent quite a bit of time looking into. And importantly, how it impacts the sales profession.
Mike, just a quick note. Now, the second Monday would be March 13th. Is that correct?
No. Oh, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. We're good.
Okay. Yep. My bad. Yeah. Okay. I've been promoting it wrong. Okay. The next topic we've got today is the main one, which I just mentioned, remote or virtual selling. And then we're going to talk a little bit about that and importantly, discuss how it impacts the sales profession and customers and prospects. Q&A, we'll have a little bit of a formal Q&A at the end, but if you have questions during the conversation, please feel free to make comments in the comment window. We will try to answer those as we go through, and so that Q&A session at the end may or may not be very long. And then finally, we'll wrap up and we'll talk about our next meeting. So with that, I want to talk about possible topics. As I mentioned, we are going to be talking today about remote or virtual selling. If you haven't been remote or virtual selling in the last couple of years with the COVID pandemic, you probably haven't been selling or you've been in retail. But the issue still continues to be an important one. And we'll get into the details of that. The next one that we've got is personalization, how you can personalize and the importance of personalization. The week after I mentioned is going to be artificial intelligence and a little bit on how that impacts sales and sales automation. We'll talk about social selling and the use of social media. And we've got a whole bunch of other topics. I'm not going to go through each one. Customer experience, the notion of sales enablement, and we'll talk about sales methodologies, of which track selling, of course, is one, and the importance of the track selling methodology. Cold calling, always an important and controversial topic. One of the ones that we think is pretty interesting is ethics. Coaching and training, again, which we've done quite a bit of. Sales and marketing alignment, how people are training and recruiting people, the different sales support roles, different types of selling, sales and social responsibility, the importance of salespeople and organizations in terms of their responsibility to society and other constituents, talent acquisition, and finally, sales training in academia, one that we've been very, very interested in over the last few years. Now, these are just suggestions. Other than the first two, we are very open to your feedback and very willing to look at the topics that you think are important and incorporate those into our agenda. So we plan on doing this on the second and fourth Mondays of the month, which Ron mentioned is the 13th and the 27th of next month. So we'll be looking for your participation. Then we're going to be doing a lot more promotion since we've kind of hopefully gotten some of the glitches out of the way. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend Ron here, and he can talk a little bit about what's going on in the sales world and the importance of the principles that we've been talking about for a very long time, 65 years, as a matter of fact. So, Ron, take it away.
Thank you, Mike, and welcome everybody. We appreciate you joining in. Whether this is live or you're watching this recording, we appreciate your interest. The topic of track selling responses through the decades, I don't think it's ever been more timely than it is right now. Beginning about 3 years ago, you might have known, well, we've all noticed what's been termed as the Great Resignation. And this particularly hit baby boomers when we talk about the sales profession that no longer could stride into a prospect's office, go through their presentation, close a sale, head off to their next appointment because that was prohibited for health reasons. And so baby boomers and the younger ones, I think particularly the millennials that leaned into it, realized we need to be able to utilize a new way, the new normal, new core competencies in sales. And one that's really risen to the forefront is this idea of personal video emails. And what we're going to do for the next few minutes is to show you a bit of an excerpt from a workshop that we began doing 3 years ago when COVID arrived, called Selling in a Virtual World. And so we've adapted part of that for our inaugural live stream series today on virtual selling. And so we'd like to talk to you not only about personal video emails, because there's a lot of great source material, a lot of great vendors, but again, the unique aspect of what we can provide is, what does track selling recommend, or how does it align with personal video emails? So let's begin. I want to begin by again thanking the developer of track selling. His name is Roy Chitwood, who said many years ago, when selling becomes a procedure, it ceases to be a problem. But you know what? If it's not a procedure, it's always going to be a problem. And the procedures for selling have changed in the last 3 years. And again, the invitation, really the requirement for salespeople going from 2020 to 2023 now is, how well are you leaning into the changes in procedure to continue to be successful in selling? Whenever we do a workshop or a presentation like this, we encourage you to be on the lookout for your single most important or valuable idea. If you'd like to send that in the chat, we'd be happy to respond to it. But this is one of the ways that Mike and I are able to get a better sense of what's important to you, what you glean from it, the aha epiphanies that you might have had as we go through. And that in turn will help us to align and direct what we're going to be presenting to in the future. To understand how track selling adapts, leans into virtual selling, there's 3 important principles that we have taught for decades that we'd like to begin with, based on some very, very important questions for sales professionals and their managers. One of which, how do people or prospects prefer to buy? There's been a lot of research done on the question, and the independent research and study results continue to affirm and reaffirm there's a series of 5 buying decisions that prospects make whenever they're being sold to. So again, we're not responding, or this is not referring to a retail setting, but this is in more complicated, nuanced products that would typically require the assistance of a salesperson, a consultant, someone who's advising the sales process for a prospect. So the first decision is about the salesperson. Is that person likable? Are they trustworthy? Do they know what they're talking about? When the prospect feels comfortable with the salesperson, the next affirmation they want to feel is the company is backing up the salesperson. What's the track record? What's the history? Who are some of the nameplate customers that you've been selling to? How long you've been around? Now, as we go through these 5 buying decisions, here's an invitation. consider how a personal video email might apply and appeal to each of these buying decisions. If you're willing to do that deep work and make this into more of a deep and meaningful dialogue, or I know it's a bit of a monologue, but you can sort of dialogue with us. Now this becomes more meaningful to you. So again, going back to the first decision, what could a personal video email do to underscore the importance of you, the salesperson, to your universe of prospects that you'd like to appeal to? Then what can you do with personal video email about your company to substantiate that you've got a wonderful company you're working for that also, oh, by the way, would be a wonderful company for your prospect to buy from? The third buying decision is a product or service, and they want to make sure this is a spot-on fit with to solve their problems and fix the situations that they have. The fourth buying decision is price. And again, I'm continuing to invite you to come back to that question. What could personal video emails do to undergird the acceptance of each of these 5 buying decisions to a prospect? And I'll guarantee you, if you give this deep thought over the next, less than an hour, you'll come away from this presentation saying there's some aha moments here. So a close companion to the question of how do people buy is why do they buy? And again, want to identify, these are sometimes called the hot buttons of selling. In track selling, we call them the 6 buying motives. And these are listed here in no particular sequence or order. There are 6 of them. 2 of them have to do with financial gain, with finances, a desire for gain or a fear of loss. Another 2 of them have to do with a short-term sense of well-being, comfort and convenience, security and protection. And the other 2 have more of a sense of long-term sense of well-being, a pride of ownership, and satisfaction of emotion. Once again, I'm going to keep coming back to this question: what could personal video emails do to present and promote how your product or service appeals to these buying motives? And if you really want to take a deep dive and do some deep work in this, which of these 6 buying motives do you feel is the most prevalent, dominant buying motive of why people buy your products or services? And I know that's probably going to be a bit anecdotal, at least initially, but if you can make something of an informed decision of which of these decisions are likely to be the dominant one, and then begin to promote these personal video emails to underscore that, voila. Okay, now we're getting into not only professional selling, professional marketing, and how those 2 disciplines can have a very successful marriage in virtual selling. And here's the third slide, and then we're going to go into some of the specific aspects of personal video emails that have really just increased in popularity and effectiveness exponentially in the last couple of years. But here's the question: what's the steps, or what are the steps? What's the steps that a sales pro can make to help their prospects feel comfortable to buy? Well, if you notice the 7 steps, we've been developing and teaching and preaching and emphasizing this for over 60 years, the 7 steps of track selling. And the significant thing that we want to talk about in terms of personal video emails is how these 7 steps align with those buying decisions. Those are the icons that parallel the staircase, beginning with you, the salesperson, or if you're a sales manager, your salespeople. Then how can you promote your company, then your product or service, then your price, and then time to buy? So there's the opportunity and the challenge is how to do this, frankly, sooner than your competition, better than your competition, and really draw a line in the sand saying, okay, the after effects of COVID are not going away. The savings in terms of reduced travel expense, travel time, suggests that this idea of virtual selling from a salesperson's home or from their office is here to stay. So if you're willing and able to reconcile yourself to that new normal, now let's take another step in that direction for you. A wonderful quote, again, that our mentor Roy Chitwood was especially fond of, was given by Eric Hoffer, who's actually a San Francisco longshoreman. Looks like he had a lot of time for deep thought there, loading and unloading ships. In times of dramatic change, it's the learners that inherit the future. The learned usually find themselves perfectly equipped to live in a world that no longer exists. And I'm sorry to say that Mike and I'm not sorry to say that we're both baby boomers, but I'm sorry to say that this took a heavy toll on our generation. They either could not, would not lean into it, and as a result, they left the profession. And now there's a tremendous need for professional salespeople to fill the gap created by the Great Resignation because of the changing modalities of sales that the older generation of salespeople were certainly simply unwilling, unable to make that change and lean into it. So, for those of you that are not familiar with personal video emails, and then we'll talk about how track selling responds to that, here's a bit of a primer. The number of personal video emails is now in the billions that are being sent. I think a lot of these are in B2B sales. There's just such a ubiquitous, far-reaching timing that these things could be used. And from a track selling perspective, personal video emails align with buyers' preferences of how they'd like to buy. And that bolded phrase there might be the key of the day. When you discover how your buyers want to buy, what's their preference, and then you're able to adapt and align your efforts with that, all right, now you've just become much more formidable in 2023 and beyond. For those of you that are interested in a deeper dive by vendors, here are three of the most popular. A product called Go Video by a company called Vidyard. Another email options from a company called BombBomb, that's the name of their product. And a company called Wistia offers a program called Soapbox. If you're interested in giving these a test, you can subscribe for free. And it's a bit of a limited use version of their product, but you can certainly get a flavor for it. A couple of years ago, when Mike and I were doing a lot of these workshops about track selling in a virtual world, we'd have people that would go to, for instance, the Wistia, the Soapbox is a Chrome extension, download it, and within the hour, they had already produced their first video email, and they came away saying, I had no idea it was this easy. I had no idea it would be this wide use, and I had no idea this would give me a competitive edge like it will. And I can tell you, and Mike and I have stayed in touch with those particular people, they're still using this years later. So now let's talk about the track selling responses to personal video emails, because again, you can get some wonderful YouTubes. You go out to those three vendors that I just mentioned, and they'll say, here's how these can be applied. The purpose why Mike and I are doing these semi-monthly live streams is to talk about what is the track selling response to virtual selling, to personal video emails. In a couple of weeks, to artificial intelligence and sales automation. We want to help assure you that there's just unique applications of track selling from it's a sales process that's been used for more than 60 years with more than 250,000 salespeople. And now let's talk about the specific application to personal video emails. Step one, you'll notice on the far left, is called the approach step. Well, you can do personal video emails to introduce yourself, introduction of the sales pro, that's you. You can also use it in step 2 qualification to, if you want to do the personal video email, here will be some of the key questions we'd like to discuss. And I just thought I'd send you this personal video email. Here's 3 or 4 key questions we'll want to discuss, give you a chance to have some thought to it, and determine what other stakeholders might you want to invite to our next meeting. Now, each of these personal video emails are maybe 60 seconds long, but I can promise you that when these pop into your prospect's inbox with your smiling face above the crease or above the fold, as they call it on email, you have a much higher rate of open and click and engagement than if you're simply using the text emails that we've been using for decades. Continuing on, here's one of my personal favorites. Use a personal video email for your agreement on need. In other words, recap what you would have discussed in the meeting earlier in that day or the day before, saying, as I understand it, from our discussion yesterday, you're looking for something that will resolve problem number 1, help you accomplish an aspiration, and be able to give you just a more likely success in the future. Is that correct? If it is, I'm sure looking forward to meeting with you next Tuesday at 2 o'clock to discuss how our company can be of service to that. And by the way, here's an agenda, and feel free to add to that. Wow. Your prospect gets that. And let me ask you to answer a question. How often do you think that they've had a salesperson with that type of professional, thorough, comprehensive, impressive, appealing follow-up to a meeting with them? Maybe the fingers on one hand, it's probably less than 5 fingers on one hand. And they can pass that around to other stakeholders. It's likely to increase the people in attendance, help accelerate your sales cycle and your enablement. So that's one example. Let me give you a couple more. And by the way, these first suggestions, again, satisfy your prospect's first buying decision, which is about you. And so that's where we start, is we want to promote you first. Give them the affirmation that you are a great sales professional, or the people on your sales team are incredibly competent, very different, distinctive, a breed apart from your competitors. You can also do a personal video email about your company, which you'll notice on the far left. That's step 4. Saying, hey, when we met, you mentioned you have some specific expectations and hope for the company that provides the product or service that you're in the market for. I just thought I'd like to send this brief 60-second video about how our company responds to prospects that have that same set of desires to know and work with. Continuing on, this addresses the points of value to a prospect, and it also addresses that second buying decision. So I hope now you're noticing the parallel, the alignment of those buying decisions as we go up the staircase of a sale. And these things are being done in the proper psychological sequence and order, which is another big differentiator that Track Selling brings its users, its practitioners. Fill the need. Again, you can do a brief email, personal email on how your product or service uniquely fits, spot on fit, where you tell the features and sell the valued benefits for that particular prospect. What are you doing now? Well, you're addressing their third buying decision. What's happening in the prospect's mind and heart? They're feeling more and more comfortable with you. And why is that important? Because of this. People buy emotionally, then justify the purchase logically. So as you go through the sales process that we call Track Selling, and you send out these personal video emails that are aligning with the sequence, the psychological order that your prospects would like to buy in, they're feeling more and more comfortable with you as their preferred prospective vendor. And then you can do some things. Hey, we're sure looking forward when we meet next week to present our proposal, whether it's in person or virtual. Again, every step of the way, you're increasing the sense of value And that's how people buy. They buy on price, they buy on value. And as you follow this pretty simple cadence, and again, the word is cadence, your prospects are feeling more and more comfortable with you as their preferred vendor of who they're going to work with. So I know I'm sure you feel like you're drinking from a fire hydrant right now. And by the way, again, price is the fourth buying decision as you parallel the staircase there to a sale. But those are several examples, and our suggestion is to start with one. And frankly, if well, it's your choice. It depends on your situation. But here's what the survey and the study results are showing. Quote, video thumbnails increased our emails open, click-through, and engagement rates. Sometimes as much as 70%. And if you think back to the number of times that you've received a personal video email, they are still precious few. And I know some of you, I'm sure, are deluged with them. But I think for most prospects, this is not a technology that's been understood, much less embraced by your competitors. Okay. And now you are drinking from a fire hydrant. Here's one of the vendors that provides these videos for personal video emails. They said, you know what, if you want to take a look at the universe of what you can be looking at, just look at the colored column headers here. Product going from the top half of the screen, product marketing videos, content marketing videos, outreach, and then on the bottom half of the screen, again going from left to right, create, distribute, measure. Well, none of us are going to be equipped to bring in this whole boatload of videos. So our suggestion over the last 2 or 3 years is start with one. And for us, we began promoting Selling in a Virtual World. It was a 1-minute video. You notice the what's blue underlined that included click here for the agenda. Click here if you'd like to book a time. Here's the day and time we're going to be doing this, a 1-day online workshop. And so that was an idea of how to introduce a webinar via personal video emails. And you notice as this would be clicked, the smiling face is on the top half of the crease, so they don't have to scroll down. It's right there as soon as they open it. And now it becomes intriguing, especially if it's a topic and title of interest and importance to them. Okay. So the next step is up to you. In 2023 and beyond, the email preference, you know what? It's your choice. But we hope in this last few minutes we've been able to make the track selling case for using personal video emails. Again, in subsequent live stream series, we're going the next one again, as Mike mentioned, and I'll give the screen back to Mike here, is artificial intelligence. So, Mike, with that, let me stop sharing my screen, and you can take it from here.
Thanks, Ron. That was fantastic. Deep dive into kind of a high level deep dive into the benefits of one aspect of remote selling, which is the personal video email. There's so much to cover in this topic. We haven't gotten a whole lot of comments yet, so we'll move right on with the agenda, as they say. The other topics, let me go back to my presentation here. The other topics in the area of remote selling that we were going to at least mention today include the, let me just get there real quick here. And that, I'm on the wrong page here. Hold on a second, we'll get through this. These are the kinds of things we learn about. So, as I mentioned earlier in the topic, in our live stream here today, the issue that of remote selling has certainly been prevalent in the sales world, and most people that I know who are used to face-to-face selling are itching to get back into the face-to-face world. However, there are many compelling reasons not to do that. The cost is certainly one of them. Convenience, There's just a lot of reasons. And what we wanted to do today was talk about some of those issues. So the first thing we want to do is we want to talk a little bit about how to handle the technology. And still, for a lot of people, this is a big issue. Most people are pretty familiar with Zoom, the webinar or web conference technology, or Teams, its equivalent, or Google Meet. There's many choices. But some people aren't, and some people just are not familiar or comfortable using it. So it's important that you understand the technology, and that's just one of the many technologies that are necessary to succeed in the virtual selling world. The other is your ability to, or interest in, adapting to the virtual environment. If you are not comfortable in selling remotely or selling virtually, you're probably not going to be terribly successful. So it's really important for you to learn how to adapt to that mode of selling and to quickly use it to accomplish the goals that you have as a salesperson. The important aspect of that, and mostly a lot of what people have to do in adapting, is building those relationships. And it's harder. There's no doubt about the fact that it's harder to build relationships when you're not face to face. But that is critically important. And in the track selling methodology, step one is approach is really all about building those relationships and the things you can do or should do to build relationships, and build relationships virtually. Also, we want to talk about staying organized. A lot of times when you're in the field and you're moving from appointment to appointment, it's easier to sort of wing it. Clearly, we believe that being organized, regardless of how you are approaching the customer, virtually or in person, or at a trade show, it's critically important to stay organized. But if you walk in the door and you start a conversation in person, it's a lot easier to sort of, I'll call it, wing it again, than it is if you're on a virtual connection. And then finally, this is a hard one for a lot of people, is to maintain that work-life balance. So it's very easy to be doing emails or video emails or preparation for presentations for next day as a salesperson late into the evening. And this really hasn't changed. A successful salesperson probably works more than 8 hours a day. But the challenge with the remote or the virtual model is that your day really never ends. And you can be doing sales activities well into the evening, even into the middle of the night. So it's important to establish some boundaries and to have a good work-life balance.
Mike, can I make just a comment?
Yeah, absolutely, Ron.
On that previous screen, one of in fact, the second icon was a monitor that says adapt to the new technology. One of the opportunities, especially for onboarding, when you've got new hires that are selling remotely or selling virtually, they've got a lot of real estate above their web camera, to the left and right of their monitor.
Yep.
And so there can be prompts for the questions to ask, the things about their company to mention, the features and benefits would be most apropos or most applicable for a given prospect. Those would be very difficult. In fact, it would be klutzy to try and duplicate those on site.
Right.
But so so for a new hire that's going through that onboarding and learning process as a new sales hire, they can have those props or crib sheets or crutches, I guess, depending on if you want to use them in a derisive term, but they're right there. And you can still be looking right into your webcam, and you can just move your eyes, just a bit, and there's a question to mention or a feature benefit to present. So what we find is for sales managers that will successfully adapt this new technology, especially for their newbies, it just gives them a chance to get up to speed more quickly. It's going to be more likely they'll stick with the company rather than being washed out. And it's just a simple little trick to adapt to the technology, take advantage of the technology for a better sales success. So thank you.
Excellent point, Ron. Thanks. Good note. Okay. One of the things Ron dove into the notion of personal video emails. I want to spend just a few minutes talking about presentations, because presentations are really, really important when you're doing things virtually. They're critically important when you're in person also, but you really have less control and less ability to gain the attention of somebody during a presentation that you're doing virtually. So the distractions, the number of distractions, the things that you can be distracted by are very important. So I wanted to deep dive a little bit here on the notion of presentations. So one of the things that you want to do is you want to make it more visual. So a tendency of people, regardless of whether they're in person or virtual, is to do bullet points. Well, bullet points are okay in limited quantity. Visuals are much better. And this is just one example, what you have on your screen here, of a way that you can take a bulleted list and make it at least a little more visually appealing. Ideally, if you can find images or videos that support your point, whether they're about your product or your company or the service that you provide, those are very, very important. But more and more, you need to have visual support for what you're saying. The next thing that you need to do is to make those presentations shorter. If you took 20 or 25 minutes before to talk about your company, sell the company step of the Track Selling System, you might want to do that in 5 or 10 minutes. People's attention span on video, or virtually, is significantly less. So you want to make sure that you're presenting information that is crisp and lucid and clear, and also very, very short in its content. The next thing is to, if you can, add interactive elements. One of the things we do in our workshops is we have breakout rooms, and our virtual workshops have been very successful with breakout rooms. So what you do is you take a group of people and you literally break them up into groups of 2, 3, 4, whatever the right quantity is or the number is for your presentation, and let them discuss items on their own, away from the group. And we find that to be very, very successful. It's a great interactive technique that engages people and really keeps them focused on the topic at hand. You can also use polls. Polls are very easy to create and set up in Zoom and other web presentation tools. Those are just a couple of examples of things that you can do to engage the user, ask questions, and have them respond with emojis or raising their hand. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. Another key point is to practice. You want to make sure that you're practicing your presentations so the technology works, you don't stumble. We've practiced several times for this presentation, yet we're still stumbling. So you can never do too much practice, I don't think. And make sure that you're prepared for the content and the topic that you are going to discuss that day with your prospect or client. And then be flexible. We have found many times where the technology just fails us. Zoom will drop out, or our internet connection will go bad. So you have to be ready to be flexible and respond to the interests and actions of things that happen at the time. And if you aren't, you can get very flustered, or you can really ruin the relationship and the interaction that you're having with that prospect or customer. So you want to be very, very flexible. So again, that's just another kind of deep dive a little bit on presentations. In our Selling in a Virtual World presentation, we go into a lot more depth of ways that you can do that, and actually have things like interactive menus so that you can be talking specifically about the things that are of interest to your customer. So it's just a simple overview. Okay, so that's kind of it for today. We're open for questions. I have one here that I would like to respond to. Let me go back to my other presentation. Joe, good name, Joe, asks, what are you guys doing to promote more virtual selling tools available to salespeople? Ron, what's your answer to that?
Well, this today is certainly a good example. We, as far as well, two ways that you can look at that. What are the tools that would help someone learn about selling a virtual, or what are the actual tools to use? So again, learning about it and doing it are probably two different questions. As far as the doing, we mentioned those three products for personal video emails: the Vidyard, the BombBomb, and the Soapbox. Um, and again, we're happy to receive those queries saying, hey, if I want to get more involved with selling online. Again, Mike mentioned the three most popular ones. We've chosen Zoom. Not that it's particularly outstanding or the others, but we just, you need to choose and work with one of them. As far as how those tools are used, again, that's the purpose for our Selling a Virtual World workshop. And I just mentioned to Mike, in addition to what you said, as far as the actual use of those tools to train, as far as interactive elements, you mentioned breakout rooms. And I think for sales, since our topic here is sales trends for 2023, and we're primarily talking to salespeople and their managers, one of the beauties of those breakout rooms is, again, as Mike mentioned, if you can divide your group into groups of three, trios or triads, and then have a particular selling skill that you're going to have them role play, put them into the breakout room and have them take turns playing the role of the salesperson, the prospect, and the observer. Then they rotate roles and they rotate roles again. So it may be a simple skill as much as come to an agreement on need that's compelling, and then have another person and you take turns being the salesperson, the prospect, the
Yep.
observer, rotate roles again. Invariably, after 15 minutes, when the facilitator brings everybody out of the breakout rooms into the general assembly, the people are smiling, saying, "Ooh, that was helpful." Agreement on need, qualification, or probably the most important one is how to close the sale and deal with objections. That's very worthy of continual ongoing role play. So those are some of the ideas that we'd have to build skills virtually, and then the tools that you can use to help accomplish that.
Great answer. Cool. We have another question here from Marissa. Marissa asks, this sounds like a great series, the live stream, but how do I provide feedback to you guys about what would be of interest to me? And I can answer that. We have an email address that is info@tracksellinginstitute.com. Info@tracksellinginstitute.com. Please send us your comments, your thoughts. If you want to prioritize the ones we showed on the screen, or if you want to suggest other topics that would be of interest to you, we would love it. We are always open to getting feedback from our customers and prospects and from the marketplace in general. And if we can hit the topics that are of interest to you, that's even better. So that's our answer to that question.
I think, Mike, and in addition, Marissa, if you'd like to have more of a deep dive on your particular industry or the product or service that you provide, most of the workshops we do are in-house, where a manufacturer will have a particular product. And the advantage of that is we go through the 7 steps, all of the scenarios and applications are for that particular product, and it's user-based. So again, if there's particular applications, how would I do this as a consultant? If I'm a financial analyst, how could I use the virtual selling, or whatever the industry is? We're happy to respond to your questions, and if you want a brief answer, that's fine. If you'd like to do more extensive training, well, that's the majority of the workshops that we do are for specific clients.
I have another thought here. It's not prompted by a comment, but we would love to have people that we could interview and have in as part of our live streams here. So if you are interested or have a topic or a special interest area that you would love to join us and discuss, we would really appreciate that. So again, info@tracksellinginstitute.com. If you think
Mhm.
there's something that you can contribute to your fellow participants, which I'm sure you can, we would love to have you join us. It's very easy to join us on this live stream, and we would really appreciate your contributions to the topic.
I think, Mike, along with that, we've got hundreds of thousands of track selling graduates through the decades. There's a lot of wonderful success stories. And if we have some of our track selling practitioners that say, I've got two or three really neat experiences with track selling that I think would be beneficial to your listeners, we'd love to have you on.
Yeah.
Just as one example, I was doing some training in Michigan a few years ago, and someone who had gone through our workshop was familiar with the idea of when you do an agreement on need, it's best if you can identify three needs of that particular prospect. Well, when the sales rep drove into the parking lot of the prospect, there was a graveyard, sort of a pretend graveyard with three tombstones on it. And curiosity sort of brought him. In fact, it was in the visitor parking area, which turned out to be intentional as well. And each tombstone had a different marking on it. And one tombstone says, "Here lies the remains of a salesperson who raised prices." And the next tombstone, "Here lies the remains of a salesperson that delivered late." And then another one, "Here lies the remains of a salesperson who did not follow up." Well, that would be intimidating to most salespeople, but to a track selling trained sales rep, jotted those down, and that's how the conversation began. So when you talk to the owner of the business, say, "We just visited your cemetery, and as I understand it from the tombstone inscriptions, what you're concerned about is being surprised by price hikes, not having follow up by the sales rep in a timely way, or the quality of the product was not what you were anticipating. Is that correct?" And the owner of the business broke into a ear to ear grin, saying, "That's amazing." And he walked out. I think it was a $170,000 sale that resulted, if I
Wow.
recall the anecdote correctly. So there's a lot of fun tips and tricks and ideas and experiences that people have had that we would love to invite onto this live stream series. So for our track selling graduates that have some of those in their repertoire or archive, please bring them out. We've got a whole rising generation of sales professionals that can benefit from your experience with track selling, and we'd love to promote you and recognize you as someone who knows how to talk the talk and walk the walk.
Super. Thanks, Ron. That's great. Good reminder. Well, I think that's it for today. We have accomplished our goals. Hopefully, we've enlightened you a bit and shared some information that's new or interesting or valuable to you. We look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks, 2 weeks from today on March 13th, as Ron mentioned, at 2 o'clock Central. And the topic will be artificial intelligence and the sales profession or something like that. But there are so many things that are happening in the area of artificial intelligence, and the impact on sales is going to be significant as it is on virtually every other profession. So please join us for that interesting topic. And in the meantime, again, if you have any comments or questions, you can post them on the videos that are on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, or you can send us an email at info@trackselling.com,
Maybe it's
tracksellinginstitute.com.
a bit of a sneak preview again. Mike's been doing some wonderful research on AI and sales. And we meet every week, and he'll say, "Hey, let me show you what I just found regarding the use of artificial intelligence in sales." And invariably, that's another, "Wow, that's incredible. That's wonderful." And so you're going to see the benefit of Mike's research. And then once again, we're going to come back and say, how does track selling respond to artificial intelligence? So for those of you that are using our sales process that we're teaching, how can you use AI as a complement to the 7 steps of track selling? So Mike, thanks again for today, and we look forward to March 13th.
Yep. And with that, we'll sign off. Thanks very much, everybody. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.